My name is David, and I live in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Yeah, the place from The Office. Only thing is, my life's never been a comedy. If you'd told me a few years ago that I'd be dreading a wedding like it was a funeral, I would have laughed. Weddings used to mean something to me. Hope, joy, family. But now? Now it's a reminder that blood doesn't always mean bond. My younger brother Matt is getting married next month. Everyone's acting like it's some grand celebration, like he's the prodigal son returning in glory. But to me, it feels like a final insult. Because if there's anyone on this planet I have no reason to celebrate, it's Matt. We haven't spoken in over 2 years, not since that night. And when I say I hate the guy, I don't mean it lightly. I mean the kind of hate that simmers deep in your bones, that poisons memories and curdles every childhood photo. The kind of hate that comes from betrayal. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that my dad called last week, not to check on me, not to say he missed me, not to ask how I've been. No. He called to demand I attend the wedding. Said it was my duty as a son, and that if I refused, there would be consequences. He used that word. Consequences. That was the moment I realized something was deeply broken. Not just between me and Matt. Not just between me and my dad. But in the whole foundation of what I thought a family was supposed to be. And that's where this story starts, not with an invitation, but with a threat. It didn't even feel like a conversation. More like a courtroom verdict. My dad called me while I was halfway through heating up some leftover pot roast. The kind of call you let ring once and already know it's going to ruin your night. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. Just said Matt's wedding was in 4 weeks and I was expected to attend. No, would you like to come? No, I hope you'll consider it. Expected. Like a command. Like I was a soldier and he was still the old Navy guy barking orders from the head of the dinner table. I told him I wasn't interested. Simple as that. I thought that would be the end of it. Instead, his voice changed, dropped into something darker, quieter. Told me if I didn't show, I'd regret it. That there'd be consequences, and don't make me do something I'll regret. That's when I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I suddenly saw it all so clearly, the way he still thought he could control me, the way he always bent the truth to suit whatever version of the family he wanted to pretend we were. When I asked him if Matt knew he was calling, he paused just long enough for me to realize the answer. No, Matt didn't know. Of course not. This was Dad's mission, not Matt's. And that made it worse somehow. Because it wasn't about reconciliation. It was about control. I didn't say another word. Just hung up. And for the first time in my life, I felt something close to freedom and something even closer to fear. Because I knew, deep down, that he wasn't bluffing. You know what the worst part is? I used to love Matt. I really did. He was my kid brother. I taught him how to ride a bike, how to sneak snacks without getting caught, how to tie a tie the night before his high school graduation. I was always there whether you noticed or not. That's the part that sticks with me now. I was there. But then, things shifted. Not all at once, but slowly, like a house settling in silence until the cracks become impossible to ignore. It started after Mom died. That grief didn't hit us the same way. I retreated inward, into routine, into work, into this pathetic idea that if I just kept moving, I wouldn't feel the hole she left. Matt, though? He unraveled. Dropped out of college, drifted from job to job, started pulling these stunts that made no sense, buying motorcycles he couldn't afford, showing up drunk to family events, getting arrested for trespassing at some abandoned factory because he wanted to feel something real. That's what he said when I bailed him out, that he just wanted to feel something real. It would have been almost poetic if it hadn't been so goddamn selfish. Dad covered for him. Every time. Always had some excuse ready. He's going through a phase, or he's just finding himself, or the one I hated most, don't be so hard on your brother. Hard on him? I was the one cleaning up the messes. I was the one paying Mom's medical bills after insurance gave up. I was the one sitting in her hospice room every night while Matt said he couldn't handle it. And yet, somehow, I became the distant one. I became the cold one. Because I dared to get angry. Because I didn't sugarcoat things. The final crack came 2 years ago, the night Matt showed up at my apartment, high as hell, with his knuckles bleeding and a backpack full of stolen cash. Yeah, you heard that right. Said he needed a place to crash. Like I was just a pit stop between disasters. I told him no. Not angrily. Not cruelly. Just no. And when he looked at me, really looked, I saw it. That flicker of resentment. Of betrayal. Like I had failed him. He walked out without another word, and we haven't spoken since. So yeah, when Dad says I'm expected to be there for Matt's big day, that I should sit in a pew, smile politely, and pretend we're some happy American family with matching ties and forced laughter? I don't think so. 3 days after that phone call, I got a letter in the mail. An actual letter. Not a text. Not an email. An envelope, hand-addressed in my father's stiff, slanted print. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. There was something almost surgical about it. Like he'd wanted to make it look personal, but every inch of that paper bled with cold calculation. Inside was a formal invitation to the wedding. Cream cardstock, gold trim, the whole 9 yards. Matthew James Brennan and Emily Grace Holloway request the honor of your presence. Yeah, right? As if they were the ones who wanted me there. I could practically feel Dad's fingerprints all over it, the stiff language, the forced civility. There was a smaller card tucked behind it. A personal note. From him. It was short. 3 sentences. David, I know there's history, but family is family. Don't make this harder than it has to be. That last line? It wasn't a plea. It was a warning. I could hear it in his voice, not love, not regret, just that thinly veiled threat dressed up as fatherly wisdom. The same voice that told me not to cry at Mom's funeral because men grieve in private. The same voice that said, don't embarrass yourself, when I told him I wanted to major in art instead of business. I read it 3 times, then folded it back up and left it on the kitchen table. That night, I poured myself a glass of scotch I'd been saving since Mom passed. She used to buy it for me on my birthday, always the same brand, always wrapped with a handwritten card. She was the only one who ever actually listened to what I liked. I held the glass up to the light and wondered what she'd say if she could see us now. Her son's estranged. Her husband playing puppet master. Her memory used like a bargaining chip. And then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the old photo box. You know the one I mean, the box every family has. Photos from Christmases long gone, birthdays we don't even remember, vacations where we looked happy for a second or two. And there he was, Matt. Little Matt with frosting on his nose, standing next to me with a balloon sword, grinning like I was the best thing in the world. It gutted me, because it wasn't always like this. We weren't always broken, but we are now, and I'm not sure we can be fixed. The next blow came from my aunt. My mom's sister, the one who used to braid my hair when I was 5 and sneak me butterscotch candies in church when my parents weren't looking. Yeah, that aunt. She called me the following Sunday, voice syrupy sweet like nothing had happened. Told me she was just checking in and had heard from Dad that I was having second thoughts about attending Matt's wedding. I could hear the fishing line in her voice, the bait dipped in fake concern. I asked her point blank if he'd asked her to call me. She didn't answer right away, just gave this little half laugh, the kind people use when they're caught and trying to pretend they're not. Finally, she admitted, he's just worried, honey. This day means a lot to him. Oh, I'm sure it does. His golden child walking down the aisle. The perfect photo op. One son in a tux, the other hidden in the background, or better yet, obediently smiling next to him like none of this ever happened. She went on to tell me about the rehearsal dinner. That it would be held at the country club Mom loved. That they were setting a place for me, just in case. I nearly choked on my coffee. Just in case? Do you know how insulting it is to be invited to your own brother's wedding like a last-minute plus one? Like a seat's being saved for a stranger who might not show? I didn't say much. Just thanked her for the call, told her I was still thinking about it, and hung up. But it sat with me all day. Because it confirmed what I already suspected, this wasn't about love. It was about image. Dad wasn't trying to heal the family. He was trying to patch a hole in the photo album. He didn't want reconciliation. He wanted a performance. And I was starting to wonder if walking away, not just from the wedding, but from all of them, might be the only honest thing left I could do. I hadn't heard from Matt in 2 years. Not a text. Not a comment on social media. Nothing. Until yesterday. It came in the form of a single, lowercase message at 1:42 a.m. I was already in bed, but I saw the notification light up on my nightstand. Just his name. And a preview that read, "Hey." For a few minutes, I just stared at it, debating whether to open it at all. Eventually, I did. The message was short. No greeting. No apology. Just a handful of words that landed like a punch in the chest. I know you're mad, but this day isn't about you. That was it. No explanation. No acknowledgement. Just a lazy swipe at my anger, like my silence for the past 2 years had been nothing more than a sulk. I didn't respond. Not right away. Instead, I reread it about 20 times. Because it wasn't just dismissive, it was revealing. That's how he sees it. That's how they all see it. My pain, my absence, my choice not to show up. It's all just me being mad. Like I'm a child pouting over spilled milk. Not someone who's been pushed aside, let down, lied to, ignored, and then told to smile through it. He followed it up a few minutes later with a second message. Dad said you're making it weird. Just come. You don't have to talk to anyone. Just be there. Like it was that simple. Like I could just blend into the background of my own family's performance. Like showing up silent and bitter was better than making a scene by staying away. But what really got me? He didn't say he wanted me there. He just said I should come because it was convenient. Because it helped him. Because my presence would smooth over whatever crack he felt in his perfect day. That's when it hit me. Matt didn't miss me. He missed what I used to do. Make peace, play along, fill the silence. And I think part of him hoped I hadn't changed. That maybe I'd still be that same big brother who bailed him out and never asked for anything in return. But that brother? He's gone. And I'm not sure I want him back. I didn't reply to Matt. I left the message on read. That little scene, check marks sitting there like a final period on a sentence I didn't write. And maybe that was petty. Maybe silence wasn't noble or brave or productive. But it was honest. And in a family full of performances, I'll take honesty, even the ugly kind, over any well-rehearsed lie. 2 days passed. Then I got a group text from my dad. It was a photo. The rehearsal dinner menu. Appetizers, wine pairings, the full spread. The caption just said, "It's going to be a beautiful night." I didn't respond. Then another photo. The groomsmen trying on suits. All smiles. Matt front and center, flanked by his fiancé's brothers and a couple of his friends I barely recognized. Another message. Wish you were in this one. That one made me clench my jaw. Not because I felt left out. That ship had sailed years ago. But because it was such a calculated move. The perfect emotional bait. Pretend like I'm missed, like my absence is some tragic mystery instead of the result of years of damage they all helped cause. I almost texted back. I typed out something. Something brutal. Something that would cut through all the surface-level sweetness like a scalpel. But I didn't send it. Not because I changed my mind. Because I knew it wouldn't matter. They didn't want me to be okay. They just wanted me to be quiet. They didn't want reconciliation. They wanted obedience. Appearances. A clean, symmetrical family portrait to post online while ignoring the fractures behind the frame. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going. Not because I was angry. Not even because I hated them. But because I didn't want to stand in a room full of people who only noticed my worth when I was gone, and only missed me when I refused to play along. That's not family. That's theater. And I'm done being part of the show. The voicemail came late on a Thursday. I didn't even hear the phone ring. Just saw the notification pop up an hour later while I was washing dishes. One new message from Dad. I stared at the screen for a while before playing it. Part of me didn't want to. Part of me already knew the tone it would take. That hard, clipped cadence he used whenever he didn't get his way. And I was right. He started off pretending to be calm. Said he hoped I was well. That this situation doesn't have to be permanent. Then his voice changed. Tightened. Hardened. He said he was disappointed. That my absence was reflective of a lack of maturity. That I was embarrassing the family. And then the threat came. I'd hate for this to affect certain things down the line. That was all he said. No context. No specifics. Just that one line, vague, cold, and razor-sharp. But I knew exactly what he meant. The will. The inheritance. The same inheritance I hadn't even thought about until that moment. Until he dangled it like a chain with a key he never intended to give me. Like my silence had a price. Like my presence could be bought. I sat down at the kitchen table, phone still in my hand, the voicemail playing on repeat in my head. It didn't hurt. Not like it should have. Maybe because deep down, I'd already known this was who he was. Maybe because some part of me had already mourned the father I used to believe in. Still, it did something else. It settled something inside me. I stood up, walked to the junk drawer, and pulled out the invitation. That thick cream envelope with its gold embossed names. I stared at it one last time. Then I tore it in half. Then in quarters. Then into pieces so small they could never be taped back together. And when I dumped the confetti into the trash, I felt nothing. Not guilt. Not anger. Just finality. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was strategic. 3 days went by without a word. No follow-ups. No guilt-tripping. No more group messages. Just a vacuum. A strange, suspended quiet that felt more like a trap than a break. That's how it always was with my dad. If you didn't play his game, he didn't punish you with yelling. He punished you with exclusion. He'd make sure you felt like a stranger in your own skin. Like your absence didn't change a thing. Like the family just moved on without you. And that's exactly what they did. I found out through my cousin Melissa, the one who always forgets she's not supposed to talk to me, that Matt and Emily had posted the updated wedding photoshoot lineup online. Their final list of participants. My name wasn't on it. No mention. No placeholder. Nothing. It was like I never existed. Even in the caption, Emily had written something like, "So grateful for the incredible people standing by our sides on the biggest day of our lives." I stared at that line longer than I care to admit. It wasn't the words that hurt. It was the ease with which they erased me. I wasn't angry. That's the part that surprised me. What I felt was more numbness. That quiet sort of ache that doesn't boil, doesn't burst, it just lingers, like an echo in an empty hallway. I thought about reaching out to Melissa, maybe just to say thanks for the unintentional heads up. But I didn't. Because the truth is, the more I sat with it, the more I realized I didn't want to be part of it anymore. Not just the wedding. The whole machine. The roles were assigned. The scripts were expected to follow. They had written me out of their story. And maybe, just maybe, I was finally ready to write my own. The morning of the wedding arrived, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel anything. No anger. No anxiety. Just a strange stillness, like the world had already made peace with something I was still catching up to. I brewed coffee out of habit, not desire. It went cold before I even touched it. The silence in the house wasn't heavy, it was clean, like something had been scrubbed out of the air. I didn't check my phone. I didn't need to. I knew what would be there. Photos of Matt adjusting his cufflinks. Emily's dress hanging in soft filtered light. Caption after caption about love and unity from people who hadn't spoken to me in years. Let them post. Let them smile. They were never smiling for me. By late morning, I got in the car and drove with no destination. I ended up out near Lake Scranton, a place so faded from memory it almost felt like fiction. But it was real. Mom used to bring us there on warm Sundays. She'd sit on a blanket, her eyes closed, like she was charging her soul in the quiet. I parked by the water and stepped out. The lake hadn't changed. Still honest. The wind off the surface didn't ask me who I was or why I wasn't at the wedding. It just moved. And for the first time, I let it move through me. There was no anger in that moment. No monologue. No scene. Just the small truth I'd been avoiding for years. I had spent too long trying to matter to people who only noticed my silence when they couldn't use my voice. No, I wasn't silent. I was choosing peace. And peace, real peace, doesn't require permission. The wedding came and went. I didn't go. No big confrontation. No dramatic exit. Just absence, deliberate and complete. And what surprised me most was how little the world seemed to care. The sun still rose. The dishes still piled in the sink. Nothing shattered. And maybe that's the most freeing part of all. I kept expecting a fallout, maybe a furious call from my dad, or some guilt-laced message from a distant cousin who just wanted to keep the peace. But none of it came. They went on without me, like I always feared they would. And I didn't chase them. That night, I sat on my porch with a beer and the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, just earned. I thought about everything I could have said. All the things I'd rehearsed in the shower, in the car, in those late-night spirals where you pretend the argument ends with you finally being understood. I never said them. Not because I lost the words, but because I realized they weren't for them anymore. They were for me. They were the words that kept me alive when the grief pressed in, when the betrayal stung, when the silence from my own family roared louder than anything else. They were my way of holding the pieces of myself together when no one else cared to help. And maybe that's enough. Maybe closure doesn't come with a conversation or an apology. Maybe it's just a quiet decision, a moment where you stop waiting to be invited in and start walking your own path forward. They'll tell the story their way. Maybe I'll be the villain. Maybe I'll be the one who couldn't let go. I've made peace with that too, because the only thing worse than being misunderstood is betraying yourself to be accepted, and I'm done doing that.